Sherry Susie, not Sherry much, but I don't know. Which Sherry is it?
Sherry Susie.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, wait, is there 3 Sherrys in the town hall? Is that right?
Yes,
That's gotta get confusing.
it is.
Received them Sherry 1, Sherry 2, and Sherry
I
3.
guess so.
I have to find out what their middle names are. We don't
Yeah. All right. Let's call the meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. And we'll do roll call, and I'll start with myself. Christina Davis, present. Judith Austin, present. Keith Lipker,
Present?
Paul Varga,
Present.
Angie DeSanto, not present. And Pamela Summers, not present. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's all 6. And then for our alternates, we have Tim Rhodes.
Present.
Okay. And our new alternate, Holland Love. I don't see, I'll just send him a text and see if he was, I told him there was a meeting today. All right, and Hugh McKenzie. I don't see, so not present. Communications. I did hear from the auditing firm today that they have all the financials. The auditor Tracy Chase thinks she will have those completed by end of day today. That would have been earlier today, and that she was then gonna send it along for review with the management team. So sounds like we are getting closer to completion on the audit, and Sherry is nodding her head, so that's good. I also did share with this board a letter that we got from the town attorney, dated February 7th, 2024. And this is in regards to a possible conflict of interest. And I'm hoping that we can add this to the agenda to tonight's meeting so we can discuss. And if there are concerns or questions, we can have that conversation. So I'd like to make a motion to add discussion of this opinion from the town attorney.
Motion to discuss.
Great, thank you.
Second?
And a second. So that was Judy and Keith. And so we'll put it under I, so we'll save that for the end.
You need a vote to.
Oh, yes. So, well, we can discuss that, if anybody wants to discuss that, adding it to the agenda. If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions?
I will abstain, Judy. I'm sorry, Christina, Paul.
That's okay. And I do have a physical copy, but I think everybody in this room is good. Do you want one?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Paul, it says he's gonna be here in a minute. So. Okay, I think that's it for communications. We do have public comments and we do have some members of the public, so would anybody like to speak? And if so, you do have a 3-minute time limit and just ask that you state your name. Any takers?
Christina, it's Paul. I would
Mhm.
like to speak as a member of the public and not as a member of the board.
Sure, go right ahead.
All right, so, Madam Chair, you'll receive a written copy of my comments, that I'm about to speak to. I would like to address the letter of opinion and the information Chairman Davis distributed earlier today, February 8th, 2024. First, to clarify the chairman's email, I am not compensated for my position as fire chief, nor am I paid to act as a firefighter EMT to cover shifts for the fire department. The small amount of compensation I receive from the fire department is for the performance of human resource administrative duties, completing payroll, assigning shifts, monitoring employee performance, as some examples. The current fiscal year 23-24 budget allots for 15 hours per week at $20 per hour. That would make a total compensation of $15,600 for the fiscal year. I am in no way paid or compensated for my operational or administrative duties as fire chief, such as responses to incidents, the use of my personal vehicle, the use of my personal devices, cell phones, tablets, etc., or any time spent at meetings, functions, or other duties as required in town, in state, or out of state. Regarding the opinion letter from attorneys Forsyth and Roberts, the letter does not clarify what constitutes the conflict of interest in this case. Is the conflict because I am the fire chief and I sit on the Board of Finance, or is the conflict because I am paid by the fire department to do a specific job? I will note again, the HR administrative job has nothing to do with my duties as fire chief. Consequently, I'm requesting additional clarification regarding the specific conflict of interest as it pertains to my position on the Board of Finance. Additionally, based on cases cited in the opinion letter, I am requesting the town seek clarification on the legality and possible conflict of interest in regards to the current first selectman and her husband's positions as PZC chairman. I will point out, Selectman Silversmith is paid directly by the town of Ashford. In contrast, I am paid by the Ashford Volunteer Fire Department. This communication and information is extremely upsetting and could be perceived as an attack on me personally or an attack on the fire department. The Ashford Volunteer Fire Department, like many in the state and quite frankly in the nation, is struggling to staff volunteers. I don't think this will help in their recruiting efforts. I'm hopeful the town will move quickly to get the information I requested so the Board of Finance may continue the budget process without delay. Thank you. And as I said, Christina, I will send this to you in a written format.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. First up, we have approving the minutes from the Thursday, January 25th meeting.
Christina, before we continue, can I just say
Yeah.
one more thing? Now, as a
Sure.
Board of Finance, as a seated member of the Board of Finance, given the circumstances of what I just said and what you added to the agenda, I'm going to discontinue my participation in tonight's meeting. Hope everybody has a pleasant evening. I'll watch the tape later on. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to hear that. Okay, we have to review the regular meeting minutes for Thursday, January 25th. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
I have a correction.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, and Catherine, what is your?
I am not a guest. I'm an ex officio member of the board, so should be listed as such. Normally, what's done is my name is just up there with the members, and after my name, it just says ex officio.
So it does say ex officio.
I know, but it put it to me under guest. I'm not a guest.
So you want the word guest removed?
Yeah, I just want to be up in the other group.
Okay. And I had one correction under new business, item B. The last sentence says, what dollar amount can be used to replenish the CNR that funds these projects? And I just think we need to clarify that the CNR that funds it, that in part funds these projects. So insert the phrase in part, because the funding for the capital projects comes from several sources, not just CNR. So adding that phrase in part. Okay, any other edits to the minutes? And so let's vote on the minutes as amended. All those in favor? Aye.
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 All those opposed? And any abstentions?
Aye.
So Judy abstained. Sorry, just catching up on my notes here. Okay. Next we have the first item under new business is to hear from our assessor, Lynn Viber, who is nice enough to join the meeting. And I just wanted to have her here to walk us through the grand list, discuss anything of note, and then answer any questions that anybody has. So Lynn, if you wouldn't mind letting us know what we
Okay.
should be looking at when we look at this grand list.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Does everybody have a copy of the report?
No, I do not.
I don't.
But we don't. I might be able to share it on the screen. Would that be okay?
Sure.
So then everybody could see it. Give me 1 second.
Would you give send it to us too, please?
Well, it was, yeah,
Well,
you didn't get the agenda, so that's why you didn't get it.
I know, that's what I'm saying. And send it the way we were agreeing. That would be fine.
Okay, so, Lynn, it's on the screen now, if you
Okay,
wanna
thank you.
talk us
And I'll
through it.
let you know when to go to the next page. Thanks.
Sounds good.
Okay, so page 1 is the summary of the grand list for October 1st, 2023. And it starts off with taxable real estate. So that's all of the property in town, commercial, residential, vacant land. You'll see the detail of that on page 2. And the next line is our tax exempt properties. We put them on the grand list, but they're exempt. And that's for accounts like town property, state property, churches, hole in the wall gang, Salvation Army. Those are just some of the accounts that make up the tax exempt real estate. And then we go down to the total, the 310 million. Next, we have personal property. And that includes things like businesses in town, leased property to individuals in town, campers. I'll get to that when I talk about motor vehicles and unregistered motor vehicles, but those are seasonal campers at the campground in town, and then unregistered motor vehicles. That's what makes up personal property. And then we have motor vehicles, or all of the registered vehicles in the town of Ashford as of October 1st, 2023. And then we have the total, and then the total taxable. The bottom right-hand number, the 370 million, is the number that you use to determine the increase from the previous year. You probably don't have last year's report available at the moment, but it was a 1% increase from last year. The 370 million, it was 368 something the previous year. And now I'm rounding up, but the real estate went up about $1 million. The personal property went up about 2 million, and the motor vehicle went down 1 million. And I did do some research on motor vehicle, and I have heard from other towns in Northeast Connecticut I happen to be on the Connecticut Assessors Motor Vehicle Committee. And so some other town assessors contacted me when they saw that their motor vehicle had pretty substantial decreases. One of the things I believe why we had a decrease, because we have 40, 50 more vehicles than we had previous, but I think it's just correcting the issue with COVID. The 2021 and 22 grand list, motor vehicle values actually went up because of all the things that happened during COVID. And we're just starting to see a drop in the motor vehicle values. And I think it's just resetting itself to where it should be, 4 years after the start of the COVID time period. And just to give you a little example, I did a comparison of vehicles last year to this year value. And I found one that I wanted to it's not on this document, but just wanted to tell you. There's one vehicle, a 2019 vehicle, and on the 20 grand list, the average retail price was, I'm just going to round now, it was $35,000. In 2021, it was $40,000. That you don't normally see. Normally, a car is going to depreciate over time. Again, that was the result of COVID. 2022, it actually went up to 43,000. Now for the 23 grand list, that same car is now down to 26,000. So I feel that it definitely reset itself from, COVID time period. So that's I believe the reason why there was a decrease when I did some research on it. So the bottom right-hand number, the 370 million, again, that's the number that you're looking at, the change in value from the previous year, which is a 1% increase. Christina, could you go to page 2, please?
Sure.
Thank you. The next few pages are a breakdown of real estate, personal property, and motor vehicles. So the next page is residential, and real estate, and it shows the breakdown. I have to report to the state of Connecticut in May, and they look for all these breakdowns. So we have residential property, commercial are things like Dollar Tree, Cumberland Farms, many of the properties at the beginning of Knott Highway. Then industrial, we have a few accounts, including like Diego Technology on Knott Highway. For public utility, we have the Connecticut Water Company. The next thing is vacant land. After that, we have use assessment, which is actually the Public Act 490, the people that have their land classified as farm, forest, or open space. Then we have 10 mil lands. That was something that existed before Public Act 490. We have 2 accounts left in 10 mil. There's not many left in the state of Connecticut, but as long as it stays in the same family, they get a reduced assessment. And it was called 10 mil because for many years, it's just been taxed at 10 mil. It's currently valued at the same value as forest land. And then the last category under real estate is the apartment buildings in town. We can go to the next page, please.
Okay.
Thank you. This is the breakdown of motor vehicles, pretty straightforward based on the class code. You have passenger vehicles, commercial vehicles, combination vehicles, farm, and then they lump all the other categories into other, which includes utility trailers, campers, in the last category. So these totals all match with the summary totals on page 1. The next page deals with personal property. And that breaks down by the different categories that people declare on their personal property declaration each year. I won't go through all of them, but if we jump down to code 21 and 22, telecom and cables, conduits, a lot of that comes from the cell sites that we have in town, the Connecticut Water Company and CL&P. That's where a lot of their property is located. It's classified under code 21 and 23. If you go down to the second to the last line, 25% penalty by state statute. If somebody does not file their declaration or they file late, I have to assess a 25% penalty on top of their normal assessment. If you look at the last one, non-registered motor vehicles, it's a pretty high number. We actually don't have that much in value in unregistered vehicles for residents of town, but we have about 250 seasonal campers at the campground, and they have to, if their trailer, motorhome, if it's unregistered, they declare it on a declaration. If it's registered, I get it from their hometown in Connecticut and I add it to Ashford's motor vehicle list. And again, that total equals the total of personal property on the first page. If Christine, if you want to go to the next page.
Okay.
Thank you. The next page is a breakdown of all the exemptions that we have. And again, I won't go through all of them. If you have questions about them, we can go over them. I'll just mention a few. And this is broken down into which ones are applied to real estate, motor vehicle, or personal property. The first three lines are the veterans. It has to do with basic benefits versus those who income qualify for additional benefits. Then we have two different disability categories. One of them is for people with a motor vehicle that's equipped for handicapped individuals. And the other one is for individuals who are determined 100% disabled. The next few relate to personal property. For example, solar has to do with the leased solar equipment that a lot of residential and commercial properties have on their rooftops. Orchard and farm buildings, that's two different exemptions that the town provides for the farming businesses in town. And I'll just jump down to the bottom. The last two, we have one commercial motor vehicle that gets a 5-year exemption. And then after 5 years, it becomes taxable again. And the last one, MME, is manufacturing equipment. We have 5 businesses in town that they fill out an application to get an exemption on their manufacturing equipment. And then the last page is actually just a summary of page 1. It's just a repeat and just in a different format. So one of the things I want to note is that, this is a snapshot in time. People now have the opportunity to file to the Board of Assessment Appeals, and they have until February 20th to appeal to the board. And any appeals that come in, I then prepare for the board members with information. They meet in March to hear the appeals. So if there's any adjustments, I make the changes accordingly. Some of the other things that will happen is I'm always adding on new construction. We have a couple new homes that are in progress, and I prorate on once they get their CO or they occupy the property. And we have additions too that I will be prorating on some new assessment, before July. And then throughout the course of the year, I'm always doing motor vehicle prorates. And that's when somebody sells or donates or they dispose of their vehicle. If they provide the proper documentation, I can prorate their assessment on their registered motor vehicle. So those are the highlights I wanted to point out. Does anybody have any questions before we talk about the top 10 taxpayers?
No
Okay,
questions?
What's that?
I'm just surprised. That was a lot of information for everybody to digest. I do have one question. Obviously we do the reval periodically, and we're due for a reval next year. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So if someone, let's say, puts in a really nice pool and a patio, does their valuation get adjusted with that construction? Once that's completed, or does it wait until the reval before that's updated? Just out of curiosity.
It gets added as they actually make the changes to their property. I'm always out watching building permits or anything else that I might learn that has been changed on a property. So no, what happens is a reval is normally every 5 years in Connecticut. It's changed over the last few decades, but it's every 5 years now. But the state did some reorganization to try to make the field work for reval companies equally distributed among the 5 years. So some towns were pushed forward or back. We were actually pushed forward a year. We were supposed to be 2026, but we're going to have to revalue in 2025. So what's going to happen then is we're going to look at all the properties that sold in the year prior to October 1st, 2026. And this is just a abbreviated what's going to happen. But with the reval company, we're going to figure out what the new values will be for all the properties in town. But yes, Christina, during each year, if people are adding things to their property, I'm adding them onto their real estate record.
Very good. And on the topic of reval, just out of curiosity, do you have a sense, because of what's like, the last time we revaled property, we were in the midst of a huge boom where property values were going like crazy, just like those motor vehicle values. Is there a sense that the reval that we're looking at next year will probably be less, I guess, significant? Or will values actually go down from that peak?
Well, it will depend on what the market is next year. I am surprised at how much properties are still selling for. I thought we might have been going in the other direction by now, but we are not. Watch the sales, and obviously when the sales come in, I have to record them as far as ownership, and I look at the sale to see if I can gain any information, if the information about the house is what we have on our records, and I adjust accordingly if I find anything. But I'm surprised in the last year that we're still seeing increases. And I do watch when houses come on the market to see what's out there. And there's not a lot available. Usually there's not in the wintertime as much as in the warmer months. But yes, for the sales that we have had, they still have been going up since 2021. So again, 18 months away, more than 18 months away. We'll wait and see what the market is looking like next year.
Right. Okay, very good. All right. So if there aren't any other questions, I'll call up the top 10 taxpayers list.
Yes, and this will be quick. This is just so what I do. Oh, go ahead.
No,
So what I
it's
do, I run a report and it's combined. I can look at it individually, but this is looking at it combined: personal property, real estate, motor vehicle. And of course, this is based on the name that they all match, but it's pretty accurate as far as if something was in multiple names, it might not reflect properly on this report. But so you can see on the right, it says PRM, personal property, real estate, and motor vehicle. CL&P is at the top with their personal property of everything that they declare in the town of Ashford. And most of these are the apartment buildings in town, because this doesn't give the address because it's a combination of real estate, motor vehicle, and personal property. But the next four are apartment buildings, and actually another property on Knott Highway. The bottom one is on Squaw Hollow. But this is the assessment for the Grand List 2023. That's
very
it.
good.
Any questions?
Anybody? I think I have one more question, which
Sure.
is, so our grand list increased 1% approximately.
Mhm.
What is, are you aware of like what the averages are in the state? Is that way lower,
Oh.
way higher? What's generally?
Thank you. Good question. So I am a member of the Wyndham Area Assessors Association, and we don't meet much during the major time of grand list, preparing between September and January. But our next meeting is scheduled next Wednesday. We meet 7 or 8 times a year, and an email will go out before we meet, looking for everybody's increase or their change in their grand list. And one town already contacted me, just we're all looking to see what's going on in other towns, and hers only went up 0.5%. And we were comparing notes because it's a larger town than Ashford, but there's not a lot of new construction going on, and of course that has a big impact on your real estate value. And the 3 larger towns that communicated with me, they had larger decreases in their motor vehicle. And again, I told them, based on my research, again, I think it's the resetting of the values, after we're 4 years after COVID.
Right.
So next month, so to continue on that, so next month, after I meet next week, I can send out an email just to, let you know what other towns are reporting in Northeast, Connecticut.
Sure, that'd be great.
And one other thing I want to mention that I didn't say is that, as you probably know, after the BAA, I will give a new report of the grand list numbers. And then just usually in May, there's another, I'll give you another update of things that have changed.
And yeah, so that'll be, we have to base the mill rate on that final number after all the BAA
Right.
adjustments? Yeah, okay. All right, yeah, any other questions, anybody? No, okay. Well, thank you, Lynn. I really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through this. We do have some new members on the board, so I think a review is helpful. And we appreciate the work that you do.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right. Thank you to her for taking the time. Next up, we have selectmen's updates.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank Madam Chair for your article in the Citizen about what is a mill rate. I think it was excellent, very easy to follow. Okay, I can't remember if we've already told you, but the fire department roof has leaks in it. And we have a company, actually the fire department, we've been working with them and they're having a McClintock come out. It's a roof company, come out and inspect it. And give us some kind of rough estimate. You're probably aware. So that we know exactly what we're dealing with. We do know that the solar installation created years ago, apparently was rather shoddily done and created some holes. So that company has come back out and they've done some, I don't want to call it repair, I'll call it patching. I don't know how effective that is. And there were also, we don't know whether it was when the roof was built or if it was part of the solar installation where nails were put through and they didn't hit the trusses. So they created holes, and over the years, what happens is those nails pop up. So that also apparently created leaks. It's my understanding from the fire chief that there is some rot in some of the wood that's underneath. And we feel we'll get a good sense of what the damage really is from McClintock and whether it's a matter of fixes or replacing part of the roof, like one section, or replacing the entire roof. So we're continuing to look at what the guarantees were with the roof. Apparently, it's not a 20-year roof, it's a 30 to 40-year roof. So we're looking into that and also working with the solar company and also working with the insurance company on potential a claim.
Catherine?
Yes.
Is that just the main firehouse or not, the lake?
Yeah, what is it, Firehouse 20? Is that what it's called?
Station 20.
Station 20. So, we had an interesting request for someone to go on to the Cattle Rock property. It's actually from the state. And it is a New England cottontail survey. And they'll be they want to be going out there and looking for droppings. So it's kind of it was an amusing thing to get. We'll be writing up stipulations in terms of what their access to that property should be, and also making sure we know exactly who's going out there and we know when they're going out there. We have had issues with some other people going on that property. We want to make sure that these people are at least the ones we know and not others. We also have apparently, this has gone on for some time, an Ace Equipment Company logging request where they want to take a path through Cattle Rock. The property is over, is somehow connected to the, what's the camp? The
home logging camp?
No, it's not that. It's over off Route 74, the
Camp Connery.
Camp Connery. And Camp Connery won't let that company they want to log on their own property, okay? Camp Connery won't allow them to come, their logging trucks to come through on the road that they have. So that this company has asked to come through our Cable Rock property. So there are a number of issues around that. I'll be meeting with the inland wetlands agent, who in an email approved them going through, but he also indicated that the town will need to have significant steps that the logging company would have to go through, and guarantees are required. So this is a broader kind of an issue than it was. And just to make sure that we've received the property back in the proper condition. Transfer station, the workers there have made a request to change their hours. The selectmen will be talking about this. This would require a change to the union contract. Bottom line, what has been suggested would give the public 4 more hours of access to the transfer station. It would have less hours for the work that's done before the transfer station opens and after it closes each day, each time it's opened and closed. So we'll be working through that. Budget work, the selectmen will meet again this Saturday to go through the budget. We did our preliminary review last Saturday. And we have a number of issues to solve, personnel oriented issues in terms of having not enough staff in our tax department, in our assessor department, and in our finance department. So we're looking at solutions to that. That's all I can say about it at this point in time.
Catherine?
Yes.
When they back up to the transfer station, is it just, the amount of time they put in before or after the hours, or the hours being extended?
That's what they'd like to change. Are you on the transfer station committee?
Yeah,
Can you have a meeting? So that I would like to comment, I would like to talk with the transfer station committee. I'd really like to talk with them before the selectmen really get into it. I'd like to make sure that it meets with your approval, just as a start. And no one's saying these are going to change yet. We're just looking at it because they've made this request.
all right, well, I'm gonna hold Terry Wakeman, he's the chairman.
Okay,
I'm doing this, I'm the secretary, so. But
Okay.
we'll get it.
or at least that I could meet with the chair. Who's the chair?
Terry Wakeman,
Oh, Terry Wickman?
yeah.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
I mean, I'm sure if you want a meeting, we can get a meeting together, that's right.
Maybe it doesn't require a meeting. Maybe it's just a matter of me talking with the chair to say, hey, this is what's been proposed. Do you think you need a meeting? Okay, school roof. That has been proceeding. The plans were all signed off properly, et cetera. They're being filed with the state if they haven't been already. There is a question that did come up about concerns about a subsequent project that was to work on the air units. And we need to make sure, it would be good if we made sure that the new roof had, and I'm forgetting what it's called, whatever the boundaries are, will accommodate, then curvature or whatever, will accommodate whatever new units are put in there, so that they're not cutting through the membrane of the roof to make it work later, later on. So that was a question that came up. It's unfortunate that it wasn't really rolled in with the project, but I can see how that might not have happened. So we'll see if that can actually be looked at by the architect. That, again, that's being driven by the school. So they're getting some more information on that from Mike Melody in terms of what those units would be. And I think that the architect just needs to know what the impact could be, what they really need to do in the roof to make sure that that covers that. And I don't know how significant that is to the project, because again, the plans, the big plans, the project book are all being filed with the state.
Well, yeah, you mentioned the architect, I would think that the architect might have anticipated something like that.
I think,
Before they start charging.
yeah, and I don't think it's anybody's fault, but I think what happened is it was just not looked at and considered as being part of that project. And I don't know that it was recognized by some of the people who were involved, that it would have to be looked at least to make sure you weren't cutting into the new roof to address this other project down the line.
I guess my suggestion would be push a little bit on the architect for not having, so that's their job, is to foresee. And, you know, maybe they could do the work without having to.
Well, one
Yes,
would
sir.
hope, I think, but I think what happened too was with the RFP in all likelihood, they had a certain, what's the word? Certain boundaries around what was being asked for from the architect, and I don't know that that was included. And yes, one would have hoped, but not necessarily, okay? So if it wasn't brought up to him in some way, by the school, by, you know, the person he was working with at school, I doubt that he would have really taken a serious look at it. Capital improvement planning, we had another meeting last night. Christina, I don't know if you want to speak to any of this. We went through all of the requests we've received so far. Not all of them have estimates, or good estimates, so we're doing some more work on that. We anticipate our next meeting is going to be on the 21st. We are marching to a date of March 1st. Actually, we'll have to do it before that. And you probably got it in here in terms of the dates that you're looking for things. I can tell you the selectmen will do their very best to meet those dates. I am a little concerned. Okay, ideally for us, it would have been not that Friday the 1st, but on Monday. But we also recognize that your board needs to have the information to be able to look through it and formulate their questions. So we respect that. That is, unless you have questions for me about anything, that is my update for today.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, yes. I did just realize that I think I did not officially seat Tim for Angie DeSanto.
See who?
Seat Tim for Angie DeSanto, so I'm gonna
Oh.
officially do that now, and Tim, you are officially seated for Angie DeSanto. And Khalid, I just wanted to say hello, if you wanna unmute and say hello to everybody.
He's out there.
He is. I
Hello,
see
good
his name.
evening, everyone.
Does it matter that Tim seconded the motion?
Well, that's, I think we do need to go back and just redo it, but I just wanted to say hello to Khalid. So Khalid, feel free to chime in. You are, you know, as an alternate, I'm not gonna seat you tonight, but you are welcome to participate in the conversation and, ask questions. So thank you for joining and welcome to the board. So I do think, just to be proper, prim and proper, we should redo, the only motion we have done was on the minutes. So can we redo that one?
I'll move to accept.
Okay, wait a minute, let's make a note. This is the redo of accepting the minutes as amended. And we've got.
I'll second.
Keith, and now Tim can officially second, thank you. And all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And any abstentions?
Aye.
Judy abstains? And anybody opposed? Okay, thank you, sorry about that. All right. Moving on. The next item is just an FYI. There is a landing page on the town website now for budget documents for the current budget that we're discussing. And you can find that on the website under documents, click on Board of Finance, then you'll see budget information 24-25. So if there's ever anything that members of the board or the public are like, oh, what was that, you know, grand list again? You should be able to go to that spot on the website and find those documents, and there's already a few there. But I know we always do that, but in the past, it seems like it's happened like right before the public hearing. And I thought it would be helpful to have it going as we go through the budget process.
Where is that now on the site?
So if you go to ashfordtownhall.org and you click on Documents, Board of Finance, and then you'll see budget information 24-25. And it has the previous years as well, so if you want to compare and contrast.
So again, I'd like to thank you for putting the links in your agendas. I don't think we've seen that done on any board in town, and it works.
Well,
It
we're
works.
in 2024, we're gonna use links.
Yeah, and I think I may ask you a little bit more about how you did that.
Sure,
Thank you.
happy to share. And then hopefully with the new website, with the town, when the town does new website,
Right,
it'll get even more easy for everybody.
yes.
The other document, so the next item is talking about. Sorry, I lost my agenda. There it is. Discuss the timeline for submitting questions regarding the Board of Ed, General Government and Capital Improvement budgets. So this was something that we discussed in the last meeting, and then I just want to put it in writing for everybody. And Judy, since you don't have this, if you want me to call it up on the screen, I will. Board of Ed. So we did this last year, Judy, if you recall, we got the Board of Ed meeting, the Board of Ed budget proposal early, then we were able to look at it, send them questions, and the feeling at the last meeting was that was very successful, so we want to do that again. So these dates have been approved by the superintendent and the chairman of the Board of Ed. So I would just pencil this in on your calendars that you're going to see the Board of Ed, the first pass at the Board of Ed budget on Friday, February 16th. And then I would just ask that we get any questions from the members of this board by the end of day, Monday, February 19th. Then I can send those questions to the superintendent and the Board of Ed chairman so that they can be prepared for the meeting on February 22nd. Does that make sense? So really exciting weekend on the weekend of February 17th. We get to sit with that budget. And then a similar process on the general government side, where we're hoping to get the general government and capital improvements plan by March 1st, Friday, March 1st. We get questions to me by end of day Monday. And then we can share those with the selectmen and the treasurer so that they can then answer those questions thoughtfully when they present on Thursday, March 7th.
Is what you're requesting, hard copies of the budget?
Well, that's a good question. I personally don't need hard copies. I'm
Most
happy with
people do.
digital, but I don't know what other members want and how they want to get the
I
physical
like the hard
copies.
copies.
You like hard copies?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
I like hard copies.
Yeah, because depending on how big it is, I mean, most people don't necessarily have a printer that prints that much.
Because I like a hard copy, because I like to
Put your
scribble
notes.
notes, you know, underline, highlight, you know, with my questions.
So one of the things I've noticed, and I was told that it wasn't done over the last couple of years, is when the departments submit their budgets to the selectmen, they used to have kind of a narrative on their budget. The fire department did. They did that. I asked for a breakdown of wages, but when it comes to the other departments, a number of them didn't do that. And because they didn't do it last year or the year before or something like that, I don't know. I didn't see anything myself. So I have some information. I have talked to the different departments. That's a whole different matter. But as far as submitting a summary saying, you know, the reason we have this increase listed here is this, this, and this. Not all of them documented that. So I don't know that I can, and actually, Sherry, if I could reach out to Sherry for a second. So I don't know that they were asked for that. What they were asked for was the annual report, which does not give that kind of information when they're making, they would go with their request. So, we'll get whatever we can. I will try and wherever I can when we submit the Board of Selectmen budget to you for your review, I'll try and put together an overview that indicates where the increases are, that kind of thing. And then I'll take you through the detail during your meeting. But at this point in time, it's a little hard to get them all to go back and now write some kind of a narrative that goes with their budget.
Right.
Some of them actually put information on their budget, their Excel budget sheets, just some notes. Some have handed me some things after the fact that where they wrote something on the side of something they developed, just, penciled it on. It just, I think we can do much better. I just don't know that I can get all of that together for this year, but it will be there for next year. So,
Okay,
So,
well, going back to printing copies though.
well, no, because when I think about putting the copies, we would be giving you that information that way.
well, when will these documents be available to us to review so we can get our questions in?
So they'll be on Friday, February 16th, and I know.
That's the Board of Ed.
Board of Ed asked that question, about printed copies, so they know that they are to provide printed copies to the town clerk's office. So if you want a printed copy, I would call the town clerk on that Friday and just make sure that she has them at that particular
On the
time and
16th.
pick them up.
Okay.
Yeah, if for some reason you can't get there and, obviously, I can help you print them out or, we can.
You
pinch
can
it.
leave them out like they did before. You just put
Oh,
them in the
mhm.
envelope and left them out with their
Okay.
names on them so we can pick them up on the way home.
There you go. That's a great suggestion. And so then I would think would a similar thing be okay?
We do not put printed copies of the general government or capital improvement budget in the, town clerk's office, because we give it to you so that we're not sending out information that may not really be valid. Okay, you need to take a look at the budget. We'll provide them to you. And we'll make sure that you have printed copies. If there's a way to do electronic copies, we'll do that as well. But we have never put copies of our preliminary budget that we're going to give to you in the town clerk's office.
So how are you gonna get it to us as,
Well, you said you
Individuals.
wanted the copies, so we will make them available in the selectman's office,
okay,
okay?
Okay.
Or I will make sure that you have them available physically to you, however you want them.
okay,
You probably won't have binders, but you will have them put together with a rubber band or a clip on them,
Okay.
okay?
okay.
That's fine.
Again, it was for whatever reason, I was told, and we are correcting it, that we didn't produce those for you before. And I'm remembering from when I was on the Board of Finance that of course we had those. And just, last couple of years, for whatever reason, apparently it was not done that way.
So any other questions on this schedule?
And I will tell you that Chris Abacoff was in today on our off day, working on putting the things together so the selectmen to be able to have that level of detail.
Mhm.
So after the Board of Ed, what's the next, one we're gonna be doing?
Yeah, well, actually, let me call up the calendar.
That's,
Budget calendar, here we go. Good to take a look at this every meeting, because I know I
we
get
got,
confused,
I see right now we've got our meetings, the 15th and the 22nd,
right?
29th of February, this is the 8th.
So the next thing on the budget calendar is the Region 19 budget is gonna be distributed to member towns tomorrow.
Okay.
So I will look for the link to that. It's a huge document. Just to warn you, I'm sure we can get printed copies if anybody needs it. But that will be available, it looks like tomorrow, if they're on schedule. And then, again, the Board of Ed is gonna present on February 22nd to us,
Mhm.
the Board of Finance, and then there's the presentation of the general government budget and the capital improvement plan on March 7th. So we're
Okay.
rolling along. So the next item on the agenda is update on the audit, which I did briefly mention in communications, but Sherry, I don't know if you could just chime in real quick to say what the status is of the audit?
You actually had a more up-to-date version than I did, so
Oh,
so I saw your email today, in regards to that. So I knew, we sent the information from the Board of Ed and the town side that was sent, probably a week and a half ago. And I know a couple things were asked of this week from the auditors. So that was supplied, and then I saw you got the email today and you copied. So you actually have more up to date
Okay.
of that. So great.
Were the
And-
items that were asked for,
mhm.
were the items that were asked for something new?
A new full detail trial balance that was asked for on Tuesday.
And part of the reason I said we have shortfalls in terms of staffing is because that's where she had to focus.
Mhm.
And, we need more access to her than that.
Right.
Mhm.
Just to be really precise, so the email that I got from the person at King and Associates says, this was today, I'm working on the financials now, should be done by end of day, that's today. Then it will go for partner review, I'd say at least another 4 to 5 days. So that puts us into next week of getting a final audit. I'm not gonna hold my breath that it'll be next Thursday, but let's be hopeful. I don't know.
At this time of the year, they're probably working on the weekends too. So it might
Better
fly.
be.
I mean, I know I was dealing with my auditors in the other town on Saturday. So,
Oh, wow.
so we were
Nice.
texting back and forth. So yes, they might be, because it's busy time of year and they're trying to get their audits for towns out because they're getting into their tax season. So that'll take up a lot of their time too. So,
Right.
so
One would have hoped that the audits for the other towns would have been completed by now. Normally, they get completed by the end of the year. They're not usually going into February. So I don't know if we're in a different case or if all of their accounts are like that.
Well, Sherry, you were saying that the other town you work for is also still not complete, so.
well, last night we just approved ours, and I can tell you a lot of the things that I've run into with between the two is because of the federal monies, all the ARPA money. So that requires a great deal of testing on those monies that have come into the towns, because the federal side, you have to do a lot more testing than the normal. And so those were one of the things I know that my auditors in the other town had to come in and get some additional things done. But, so that's one thing, but, we'll go from there.
Do they test for ARPA here in Ashford?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Okay, well, hopefully we're closing in on the end of the audit saga. Next item on the agenda is the fiscal year 22-23 annual report update. So I did get what has been submitted, I got from Sherry Susie, she forwarded them to me. So I just really quickly put together a list of who's on the naughty list, not naughty, I'm just kidding. These are all wonderful people. But I will try to follow up with these folks. I don't know if you can, is that too small? I can zoom, can I zoom? It's not like.
And just so you know, from the Office of the Selectmen, it's not a priority right now. We're trying to get the budget together.
Understood,
Thank you.
understood. And a lot of these are, Conservation Commission, Economic Development Commission, these
Right.
are volunteers. And so a lot of the folks who are working, in the departments, in the town hall have submitted their reports. So I think we're in pretty good shape.
I have submitted for the zoning board of appeals, and I went through this last year,
Oh,
and I submitted that a while ago. And so I'm not really
Do you want to send it right to me? That'd be great.
Could you put me on copy as well?
Because I think what
I'm
happened,
tracking them too.
it's a bit of a game of telephone that ends up happening where it goes to Sherry and then, or sometimes it goes to Catherine, and then if it doesn't get to me, like this past annual report that I wrapped up, kept getting reported that the DPW hadn't submitted theirs. Well, they had, it just had like not gotten where it needed to go.
Oh,
So totally, nobody here is pointing any fingers. It's just,
No,
I'm gonna
yeah.
send nice emails that say, hey, I haven't seen this, perhaps you've sent it, but if you could send it directly to me, then we can make sure we stay ahead
this is
of it.
22, 23.
Right.
All right.
Sherry, you sure you didn't get one from the Office of the Selectman? From Chris?
Mm,
We'll check outside of here.
Yeah, yeah.
Not an issue. We'll check it. Cause I could have sworn there was for that year.
well, they were so close. I know
No.
there was for the 22 and
Yeah, maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, it's easy to get confused with all these things.
Yeah.
But anyway, I feel good about it. I think we're not gonna fall behind. And, Amanda Robinson has agreed to edit it again. So once I kind of have a chance to go through them, I'll send them off to her and we'll get
What
them.
is your target date for producing the final version of the annual report?
I mean, I would say like end of July.
Good, thank
Is that
you.
a good answer?
Yeah,
I definitely want to have it, you know.
it seems like a
I
reasonable
don't
date and
pressure
appropriate.
people during the budget season. I understand everybody's, you know, quite busy. But so that's why I think once we have the budget done, then we can kind of circle back with
Yeah.
everybody. But I just don't want to leave it until the end of the year because that I think has been problematic in the past.
Yeah, we don't want it to go as long as the other one did.
Right. Okay, any questions on the annual report? Okay. Next item, this is, pretty, I just put this on here just in case the special town meeting didn't happen, but the special town meeting happened and Holland was elected to join, as an alternate of the Board of Finance. So again, welcome Holland. I don't know, Judy, have you ever met him?
No.
Okay. I know Keith, you had a chance to at least see him at
Yes.
the meeting on Tuesday. But so now we have a full complement of alternates. Tim, Holland, and then Hugh is our third. So that's good news.
Mhm.
Okay, next up we have, oh, there he is. Look at that, he's got a face. Now, Holland, did you get my emails that I sent you probably Tuesday or Wednesday and today?
With some attachments in it.
Yeah,
I did.
you did. Okay, it's just we're having deliverability issues and I wanted to, some people are getting things, other people aren't. So if you're getting emails, that's good.
I didn't even realize my camera wasn't on.
Oh, yeah, your camera wasn't on, we couldn't see you, but now we can. Okay, next item is the item that we added to the agenda, and this is discussion of the letter from the town attorney. I'm gonna give a little speech, little background, and then open it up to the floor for comments. I'm a little sad that Paul felt the need to leave the meeting, because I wanted him to hear me say this, which I have said to him one-on-one. I had a conversation with him last week, one-on-one, where I said to him that I really value his presence on this board. He is very engaged in the work of the Board of Finance, and he clearly cares about this town, and I don't doubt that at all. And I want him to stay as a member of this board. Don't want anyone to be confused about that. The issue of the conflict of interest has come up multiple years. Last year specifically, I asked about it and was told in a public meeting that there was no conflict of interest, that we had an opinion from the town attorney that said so. And I said, no, let me finish my.
Oh, I'm
little
sorry.
speech." And so when I became chair, I felt if we have an opinion from the town attorney, I want a copy of it so that when the question comes up again, which it will, that I would be prepared and be able to say, we're good, this is what the town attorney said. Turned out we could not put our hands on that opinion.
And the town attorney was not aware that a request was made for that.
Okay,
We
So-
did have one from years before when Jesse came on the board.
okay. So what I had my reach out to the first selectman was, can I get a copy of this opinion? Then it was, we don't have that, so I'm going to go and ask for one now, which I supported. I did, just so everybody knows, call Paul and say to him, I appreciate you, I value you, and I want you to know that we are seeking this opinion in the interest of transparency. We are public officials. We need the public to know what is happening. To be quite candid, he's told me on the phone that he supported the idea of getting the opinion. So that's why I'm a little surprised by his comments at the earlier part of the meeting. He seemed quite upset. That makes me sad. I do recognize that I might have in my email today mischaracterized what he receives compensation for. That was my mistake. I'm not trying to make anybody look bad. I did say he is fire chief and he receives compensation. I didn't specify that he receives compensation for HR duties, and I apologize that I wasn't specific. Quite frankly, I didn't know that. So that's my speech. Again, value Paul. I value the fire department in this town. But I am someone who cares very deeply about transparency and open government. I come from a background of journalism. It matters to me. So that's where I'm coming from. Now, the document that we have to share is not my opinion. Quite frankly, it's not what I would want to say about the matter. I think it does put us in a difficult position, and I think it puts Paul and the fire department in an awkward position. But I don't have control over what the attorney says. So that's my speech. Keith, you
Yeah,
look like you want to say something.
Well, yeah, I haven't spoken to Paul about this. This is my first, inkling to what's going on. But maybe Paul thought that it had been resolved before because there was a belief that there was an opinion out there.
We were told there were,
So he may have thought that this.
and it's not by you.
Yeah,
It was
I'm sorry?
It was by Bill Coletti, not by you. But Bill said that there was something.
No, I know, and what I'm saying is that when I talked with town council, he had not been approached about this.
Well,
That's all I know. I just did what you asked.
we don't question it
Yeah.
when it comes
Yeah.
to.
And what did happen though before is when Jesse was going to run for, Board of Finance when I was chair. Before the town meeting where he was brought on as an alternate, I guess he was an alternate. I realized that his wife worked at the school and that he would be weighing in on the school budget. And the way it generally works is if you, and in the state, is if you have a relative or you receive compensation for something that, you're voting on kind of thing, that would be a conflict of interest if you're being paid. So anyway, what happened before was I got an opinion myself from town council when Jesse was coming on. And what was said, and I'm sure that you were probably aware of it, is that that the person cannot weigh in. For example, in Jesse's case, he could not weigh in on the education budget. He could not, if you were voting, separately, but if you're voting on the whole thing, that's fine. He could vote on that. Not, but in terms of salaries or something, he couldn't vote on that
And
piece.
that's what this.
And this came back. I was not surprised at the answer because that was the answer before. But again, I had heard that, you may have gotten another opinion at some point in time and there wasn't one.
Well, I guess my concern then is that if this, and I'm not doubting what council has written here,
Yeah.
that's what they're paid for, is then, any other head of a department would not be able to present. So the library director, because they get salary from the town, and then the head of the Public Works Department is on the town payroll, they could not present on behalf of their budgets. If I read.
No, I don't think that's what.
No, that doesn't fly, it doesn't go like
It's for the
that.
voting.
Right, it's
So-
it's the perceived conflict of interest of a board member then presenting information related to a budget that.
Which he would
Well,
vote on.
Yeah,
Well, but
so
see,
like-
this says, based upon these principles, it is our belief that Mr. Varga should not present the annual budget proposal for the AVFD to the Board of Finance.
Right, but he can produce it. He will be presenting it to the Board of Selectmen. It's part of the general government budget, which we have to present to you. So he can present it to us, and actually, in
Okay,
a meeting last night, I advocated for what he's looking for. But no, he can, there's a process, the whole process, I laid it out when I sent it to the town council, and you saw, I know you saw it. There's a process. The Board of Selectmen
Mhm.
cobble it
Okay.
together for you, refine the general government budget, and then we present it to you. During the course of us putting it together and refining it, we have departments come in,
okay,
okay? So he would be a great spokesman there. It's because he is on this board and this
Okay.
board votes
okay.
on that.
Because at one of the prior meetings, there was talk about having the library director and Public Works come in. And there was discussion about this is their first.
But they're not
rodeo.
they're not on your board
Yeah.
voting
Yeah,
for their
so that's
budget.
totally
This
fine.
is- But, okay.
That's the only
Okay.
point.
Okay, because I would have liked that what he said is because it just said he can't present, but he's gonna present to you guys.
course.
So I would think that would be true.
And
of
he can
any
still
other
vote,
department.
this very
Well,
specifically says,
he can't vote on specifically the fire department.
right, but we don't do
Overall.
that. We only
Right.
vote as a board on the general government, so he can still vote yay or nay on that general government budget, that one component is the fire department. So he has a vote, it is just the advocacy piece
Mhm.
that the town attorney is saying is not appropriate for him.
And all I'm saying is that any other board or any other department that would be advocating for themselves, if they're being paid by the town, they have to go to you, the Board of Selectmen, and then you present to us.
Actually, they will be talking with us anyway, the ones that we need
Mhm.
to talk with, because some of them we already understand what their budget is. But I think what you need to remember is, none of them, and they can present to you. None of them are sitting on your board. That's the difference with
Right.
Paul.
Well, but that's not what the opinion says.
Yes, it
Says
is.
He should not present the annual budget,
His fire department budget
his fire department budget.
to this board, because he sits on this
Right.
board.
That's the
That's-
only reason.
That's the
why.
only
But
difference.
you have to read the whole
You
letter,
gotta-
you can't just read that
All right.
one paragraph.
It is actually is more straightforward than you may imagine.
Okay,
I
Okay,
do wanna
none of
give
those-
Judy, I wanna give Judy a chance to talk,
Sure.
because she hasn't had a chance to say anything, so what would you like to say, Judy?
Well, I'm a little concerned, and I spoke to you a little bit about it before. It's a small town and we have limited people who run for the boards. And, like I had mentioned to you, you had gotten an award for Ashford School and you really advocated for that budget that year. I don't know if you've been, a substitute at any time, but if you were to be a substitute, would that mean the same for you? So we have to be careful about, what we're doing here, because eventually you're gonna run out of people. Cause everybody works for something.
If
So
I
let me
can-
just give
I'm-
for the
I'm-
record,
Yeah.
what my involvement, I have two, and listen, I'm an open book. You wanna ask me questions, I'm happy to talk about it. I have two children in the school. I value education. During COVID, because there was such an issue with not having substitute teachers, I was a substitute teacher twice. I think I got paid a grand total of $100.
But you were still on the board.
I was not on the Board of Finance at the
As
time
if
of
you were an
that.
alternate.
Was I?
Mm-hmm,
Are you sure about that?
yep.
You might want to just double check.
I will double check that, Judy, but I'm pretty sure that that was in January of yes, because it was fall of 2020 when my kids went back to school. I was a substitute December of 2020 and January of 21, and I ran for Board of Finance in the fall of 21.
So you
So
were not
there's
on the
that.
board.
There's
But I'm
that.
just saying.
Let me just, that's
This is
fine.
an example.
I don't have a
I'm
problem
not
with you.
fighting with you,
Apparently,
okay?
I don't have a
apparently it
problem with
wasn't
you
an
asking that
example.
question. And I did win, was given an award, I was nominated for an award because I volunteered at the school and helped build outdoor classrooms again, so that my kids could keep going to school during the pandemic. That's why I got an award. That was, there was no compensation tied with that award. It was just a nice thing. So that's that.
But I'm saying perceived.
We all have,
perception.
we all have our
Ah.
biases.
And that's what I wanted to clarify on the
100%.
perception. On the perception, when I had the conversation with town council, he said the way the courts are looking at things, especially now, over the last few years in particular, it is the perception of a conflict of interest that is more damaging than the actual conflict itself. Okay, now listen closely, because it erodes the public's confidence in their government. It's the perception that is more damaging than the actual conflict. So the perception of Paul or anybody else who is sitting on this board and making decisions about a budget that affects their paycheck would be the perception. Whether or not that, I'm not saying that Paul has done anything wrong. He
It's a
hasn't.
perception, and it's the same perception.
But
That's
that
all I'm saying. I'm saying if
I
you're
think
gonna
you're
do
missing the
one,
point.
you go across the board.
Well,
No.
let me just.
So there's
be clear, I'm
nobody on
not
this
gonna
board that's
be-
getting paid.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna be presenting the Board of Ed budget. ever.
Right.
So,
And I'm not saying you are, I'm
Yeah.
saying, in Paul's defense, he's been on this board many years,
No.
and you have too. But the perception and doing something like this, you're not gonna get people who wanna come on this board.
I understand that. Let
He's
me
been on
just
the board
say-
3
Let me
years.
just say again, Judy,
Regardless.
Well, you said
me-
many years.
let me just
Oh,
say again,
Jesus, Catherine.
You
I
don't need to swear.
totally
I
respect,
swear, Jesus is not a swear.
I totally respect what you're saying, Judy. I understand it. Let me just remind you that I spoke to Paul last week and he said, I support you getting this opinion. He said that to me. Quite frankly, when I had that conversation with him, I thought he was gonna tear my head off. But I decided that I wanted to give him a heads up, and he said, I think this is the right thing to do. I'm sorry, that's what he said.
So we had, when I was chair of the,
Keith wants to
Yeah,
speak, go
I
ahead.
don't
Okay.
wanna hear
Yeah.
that.
well, then we have
Paul
two
were to get-
situations.
If Paul were to give up that role, and I don't know who else would do it, not fire chief, but doing the admin, payroll, and that HR stuff. Would that eliminate the conflicts?
I believe so.
Yes,
But then
if he
you-
was not being paid.
Yes.
It would, but then again, and I can appreciate what goes into that. So if you had somebody else do it, and they got paid, but they weren't on the board.
If they weren't, yeah, they weren't on the board.
Then
Right.
that would be agreeable.
That'd be fine. Now, I just wanted to clarify, when I was chair of the Board of Finance, we had this situation with two particular people. We had Eugenie Bagley was sitting on the board, and she had to leave the board because she was getting paid to help run the elections. She was getting paid by the town. So came up back then, she stepped down. Butch Simpson was on the board and he was also working the elections and he chose to discontinue working the elections so he could stay on the board because he was no longer getting paid. This is not a new thing. And the fact is they recognize that conflict of interest. So again, if you're getting paid by the town, an agency of the town, then and you're sitting on the Board of Finance, you have a conflict.
And we understand that, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying it needs to go clear across the board.
Well,
For
and I think it
I agree
is.
with you on that.
For
Yeah, I agree on that as well.
I
So,
think we can, I
Yep.
think Yeah, do you want to comment?
When you're done.
Well, technically, you're not supposed to comment because you're a member of the public, but we have time that's for public comment, and this isn't one of them. However, I'm gonna make an exception, and you can go ahead and talk.
What I'd like to say, being a member of the Ashford Fire Department for 49 years, I respect your statement in regards for the respect of the department and for Paul. I've been in this town since 75, made a lot of friends, done a lot for this town, as if we were like a family. Your comments, I agree with. You spoke with Paul. I got the utmost respect for Paul. And we've been through numerous chiefs, from Wayne to Bruce, everybody right down the line. And what you're saying tonight in regard to Paul, you will reflect that back to Paul. I know you had your conversation a week ago, but if he hears what you, Christina, has said tonight, I think that will make an impact with him and your sincerity. And that's all I have to say about that.
Well, I really appreciate that, and
And I'm an upfront person too.
I
If got
appreciate that
something to
you
say.
recognize my sincerity. I'm not BSing anybody.
Yeah, I'm a straight shooter.
So, and again, it's an uncomfortable conversation. I understand it's not ideal. But I do think it's important to have the conversation.
Great.
And to make the public aware so that there aren't questions. And we can say, point to the meeting and go, here, this is where we had the conversation. And it's not comfortable. It is a small town. I get it. I totally get it. And again, like you noted, I respect Paul. He's very engaged. He cares about this board. He cares about the town. He cares about the fire department. I don't want to lose him. So I'm hopeful that he can take this letter, reflect on it, and we can figure out a way forward, whether that's he presents to the Board of Selectmen.
He will.
And then includes some sort of narrative with that then makes its way to the Board of Finance. That could be a way around all of this.
There already is a narrative for their budget. As I said, the fire department always does a great job on their budget. There is a narrative that was already provided, it'll be in your packet, that talks about things at a higher level in terms of what they're looking for. And I did ask for the breakdown because I saw such a big wages number and I had no idea what was in it. And also, some of the other things that he was recommending or are being recommended. I'm assuming that Paul put it together with the help of somebody else. The budget, I don't know.
Yeah, he put them in there last
Well,
year.
the other thing I think you need to know is that until we have that breakdown, we had no idea he was being paid. It wasn't even about that. It was not a conflict of interest for him to be talking about the fire department if he wasn't being paid at all.
Yes.
So that's where the sticky point is. And that's the same sticky point we had with Eugenie and the same one with Butch and the same one with Jesse. And so this is not a new thing. And when we think about Eugenie and all of that, that was years ago. Okay, but they recognized it and made a decision. They did not want, and again, that attorney, our attorney that we've worked with for years, and he's very good and very responsive. He said, what people need to understand is that it is the perception of the conflict of interest. So if you're not getting paid for what you're doing, it's not a conflict. If you're not getting paid.
Not on this board, it's not a conflict. I
Yeah,
just want to be.
Him being
clear.
on the board is
I don't
fine.
want anybody in the library, the Department of Public Works going, oh, I can't go to the Board of Finance now. They can
No,
go to the Board of Finance because they don't sit on this board. They weren't elected. Now, if, let's play, hypothetical, if Cindy Ford, she's a resident of town, she decided to run for Board of Finance, we'd be going to the town attorney and asking for an opinion about that. 100%. Now, I don't think she would do that, because that'd be crazy, but again, Casey McHugh, Department of Public Works, if he ran for Board of Finance, he totally could. We'd be asking for an opinion from the town attorney. That would be the right thing to do.
And I know that Paul mentioned, was a small thing, but he mentioned me as a selectman getting paid. And he mentioned my husband. My husband chairs planning and zoning. He doesn't get paid to do that. He's a volunteer. The fact that I'm getting paid and you want me to present the selectmen's budget and the other selectmen who are getting paid, can't get around that, and that is recognized as being appropriate. We have some other scenarios. I know I look at things like making sure that our department heads don't have their relatives working for them. That would be nepotism, the perception of nepotism.
What
So-
about the influence?
The influence, you mean because there's pillow talk with me and my husband?
Well, I wouldn't
know about
get that graphic.
Well, it's changed dramatically, believe me.
Don't care.
Judy dear, it's changed dramatically.
No,
Now, if you get in
Just
trouble, you
asking
can
the
say
question.
it's his fault.
It's his
You
fault.
Listen to him.
No, he's the one, he always says things are my fault,
Throw him under the bus.
because he would not have normally.
Okay, I do want to give a moment for our friends that are on Zoom, Tim and Holland. I know there's been a lot of talking in Holland. You're like, oh my God, what did I walk into? It's usually not this interesting. But I just want to give you guys a chance to talk if you want to say anything.
Yeah, briefly, I mean, I don't really know Paul personally, but reading through this, it seems to me as it sets precedent for a procedural change within the Board of Finance, where if we run into this situation, this is how it goes. This statement is less about Paul in a
Right.
specific sense and more about if any member of the Board of Finance is paid by an agent of the town, then we can turn to this opinion and be like, hey, this is what we did when it happened with Mr. Varga, and this is what we're going to do now with this new person. So, Paul's, value to the board is obvious, but, so he can't present a specific piece, that pertains to what he's paid for. That's it. Everything else, regarding his responsibilities with the board of, or with the fire department and the Board of Finance are untouched, unchanged. So, I say that rather than looking at this, I really do think it is upsetting that Paul was upset like he was, and perceiving this as a threat, because this is anything but a threat. This is to protect him. It's to protect the town.
Right.
So that we can have that standard set forth. So like Judy said, this is across the board. So if this comes up again with anybody, we have a policy in place. We know how we're going to handle it. It's no longer a big deal. So
I think that's
it.
very well said, Tim. Thank you.
Tim.
I think you covered it.
Good comment.
I do have one more thing to add. When Chuck Funk was on this board and he was the chair, he refused to do any work for the town because he would be being paid by the town right up front. It was very clear. And over the years, never once did anything where he would be paid by the town.
One other thing to note is I did do some consulting work for the Economic Development Commission, and that was in 2021. And once I was endorsed as a candidate for the Board of Finance, I resigned from those responsibilities.
Exactly.
And, just to be clear, I got paid,
Why
like
can't-
$1,000, but again, I did not do, I decided because of the conflict of interest, I did not do that work anymore. And again, I'm not saying that Paul needs to drop anything, but I'm just explaining that that's something that I did address personally. Yeah.
I just think we need a policy, like,
Well, I think this is the policy.
no written policy, so that there's no spending more money to go to the attorney every time a
Mhm.
question comes up, because
It's in
it's right
state,
here.
it's in state statute. It doesn't mention the specific names of boards.
Well, if it's in state statute, why are we paying an attorney to review it again? Let's put it in
Because
the
I was
policy.
asked, excuse me, I was asked to
Is
get that.
there a reason not to do a policy?
I'm
Is it
sorry?
something, is it something we could do as a board and say, we're going to have a policy regarding conflicts of interest and spell something out like that? That we.
I can ask because what you don't want to do is you don't want to conflict with state statute.
Right, yeah. Well, let's investigate that. I think it's a valid thing to bring up. Let's just have, again, that's also, I
Right,
wanted
because you're gonna
this.
be,
I
you're
actually-
gonna be spending money every time it comes up. It's
Right.
a small town, you're gonna have this.
Well, no, not if you already have this.
Yes,
And I
Well,
already
you've
have
had
this.
it 4 times already, so
No, we
why
did
don't
not.
we have something that just states it and be done with it, so nobody gets hurt again, and everything's out on the board,
yes.
and
We did not do this 4 times.
you
We did.
just said, you had Butchie, you had.
No, we didn't have to go to the
Judy,
attorney.
Judy
They already
and
knew.
Judy and Catherine.
I'm
We need
done.
to let it go.
I'm done.
I appreciate everybody's talk. I know it's uncomfortable. Again, this is about being transparent and making sure that the public understands where everybody fits. And if anybody has any questions about me personally, what my husband does, what I do, I'm more than happy to answer it. And if someone thinks that there could be a potential conflict of interest, please raise that with me. I'm more than happy to talk about it. So let's leave it at that. Again, I appreciate everybody's efforts in having a dialogue about it. And now my computer isn't. So I'm gonna go over here to the agenda. So, agenda items for the next meeting. Hopefully it's gonna be the audit. And just to go back to our schedule, the next big headline event is the February 22nd meeting where the Ashford school budget is presented. I don't think there are any other issues that we're gonna have to consider between now and then, other than the audit. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sherry, do you have anything that you think you might need us to consider?
No,
No, okay. And remarks for the good of the board. I think I've done enough talking this evening. Nobody wants to hear any more from me. So with that, I will ask, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Keith made the motion and Judy seconded. All those in favor?
No.
Aye. I think, any opposed, any abstentions? Holly, you don't get to vote this time, but maybe next time. Thanks again, everybody. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
good night.
Have a good night.
Hey,
Good night,
Christina,
everybody.
before
Oh.
you,
Yep, I'm still here.
just one thing, and I'm not sure, when you were showing, sharing on the screen, the documents and that, I don't know, but I can't see that from being.
Oh, you know what? I didn't share my screen in Zoom. I was just sharing it in the
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
But I
because-
could share my screen next time if we do it that way. Yeah.
Okay,
That would
that's
make
just
sense.
something that, I know you guys can see it at the meeting there, but us online, I'm like,
Yeah, sorry.
So the-
I should have shared. Thank
so-
you.
So no one online can see it.
No,
Okay.
no, but yeah. Okay, well, thanks, everybody. This is recorded, so we gotta say goodbye.